Imagine this. A single traffic accident doesn't just make the news, it dramatically reshapes national immigration policy almost overnight.
Yeah.
That's exactly what seems to be happening in the U.S. right now, and it's moving really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Just days ago, August 21st, Secretary of State Marco Rubio made a pretty striking announcement: an immediate nationwide pause on all worker visas for commercial truck drivers.
Right. A full stop.
And this wasn't just, some small policy tweak. It felt like a direct, very swift response to that horrific crash back on August 12th.
The one in Florida.
Exactly. An 18-wheeler driven by Harjinder Singh, an Indian national, allegedly caused 3 tragic deaths on the Florida Turnpike.
But here's the real kicker and why we're doing this deep dive.
Okay.
This specific action for truck drivers, it's actually part of something much bigger. A huge initiative by the Trump administration.
A continuous vetting plan.
That's the one. They're calling it continuous vetting, and the aim is to review all 55 million foreign nationals currently holding some kind of U.S. visa.
55 million.
Wow.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this. We're diving deep into, well, a whole stack of breaking news, government reports, expert analyses, all looking at this major, still evolving shift in U.S. immigration policy.
Right.
Our mission today, try to cut through the noise, help you understand the different layers of the story, from the national security side to the very real economic ripples.
And what's really insightful here, I think, is how this one tragic incident has sped up, maybe even justified, a much broader conversation. A conversation about who gets into the U.S., how we vet them, and the profound consequences these policies have, not just on individuals, but whole industries. It really shows a fundamental shift, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, in the government's approach to visa holders, it seems to be moving from like one-time check at the door.
Right, when you apply.
Exactly. To what could become sort of perpetual digital surveillance. It's not just more vetting. It feels like a redefinition of residency itself. Like it's a privilege that's constantly being reevaluated.
Interesting way to put it.
And that has big implications, for individual liberties, the whole idea of belonging. So yeah, we'll try to connect those dots for you, looking at what's happening and why it matters, using all these different sources to give you the clearest picture we can.
Okay, let's zero in then on the crash itself, the one that kind of lit the fuse for all this. Because the details here, they really do shed light on the policy decisions that came right after.
Agreed.
So, August 12th, 2025, Harjinder Singh, Indian national, driving an 18-wheeler Florida Turnpike, St. Lucie County.
Got it.
Authorities say he allegedly tried an illegal U-turn through one of those official use-only access points.
Oh, okay. Not good in a big rig.
Definitely not. It apparently caused a head-on collision with a minivan. Tragically, 3 people were killed. Singh's now been charged with 3 counts of vehicular homicide.
And what the investigators found out about Mr. Singh's qualifications after the crash, well, it was genuinely alarming. And it's really central to the debate we're seeing unfold now.
What did they find?
He reportedly failed an English assessment pretty badly, answered only 2 out of 12 spoken questions, identified just 1 out of 4 road signs.
Wow, for a commercial truck driver.
Exactly. And then there's his immigration history. Mr. Singh first entered the U.S. illegally back in 2018.
Okay.
His application for work authorization, it was denied by the Trump administration in September 2020, but then it was later approved by the Biden administration in June 2021.
So a reversal there.
A key reversal. And then, despite apparently lacking clear legal residency and, these reported issues with basic English proficiency, he somehow got a full-term commercial driver's license, a CDL, in Washington State in July 2023.
Washington State.
Yep. And then a limited-term CDL in California in July 2024.
Wait, how? I thought federal rules required legal residency for a CDL.
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Those licenses were obtained despite federal requirements, which are now understandably under intense scrutiny. This apparent gap between federal rules and what happened at the state level, that's really at the heart of this whole national debate.
And the fallout from the crash wasn't just local. It hit Washington almost immediately, didn't it? Triggered a really fast, decisive policy response.
Absolutely.
Even Harjinder Singh's brother, Harneet Singh,
What?
He was a passenger in the truck, also apparently in the U.S. illegally since 2023. He was arrested by ICE just days later, August 18th, pending removal.
Right.
Then, boom, August 21st. Secretary of State Marco Rubio doesn't just issue a warning, he announces that immediate pause on issuing all worker visas for commercial truck drivers.
And his quote was pretty direct.
Yeah, he said, the increasing number of foreign drivers operating large tractor-trailer trucks on U.S. roads is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihoods of American truckers. Pretty strong words.
And Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, he went even further, called the crash a preventable tragedy. He ordered a nationwide audit of state licensing practices.
The audit of all states.
Nationwide. And he pushed for stricter enforcement of English proficiency requirements for commercial drivers. What's really notable here is this effectively reversed a 2016 policy.
What did the old policy do?
It allowed inspectors to basically overlook English proficiency violations if that was the only infraction they found.
Ah, okay. So they're tightening that up significantly.
Exactly. And, one immediate question that just jumps out from all this is, how did Singh get those CDLs in Washington and California if the federal requirements, especially with this renewed focus on English, were supposed to be in place?
Right.
And that whole timeline of his work permit,
Yeah.
denied under one administration, approved under the next. And that's also a really key detail. It just highlights this complex, maybe messy interplay between federal and state rules.
It sounds like maybe the systems weren't talking to each other or interpreting rules differently.
Could be. It almost feels like the right hand and the left hand weren't just disagreeing, but maybe operating from entirely different rule books.
Okay, so while that tragic crash ignited this specific policy fire for truck drivers, the sparks from it seem to have landed on a much bigger pile of kindling, something the administration was maybe already building.
That's a good way to put it.
This deep dive really goes way beyond just truck drivers. The Trump administration has kicked off this huge review, continuous vetting, they call it,
Right.
of all 55 million foreign nationals who currently have U.S. visas. Just think about that number for a second. 55 million.
It's staggering.
To give you some perspective, that's roughly like the entire populations of California and Florida combined, all under review. This feels like a really significant escalation in controlling who enters and stays in the U.S.
It absolutely is. And the State Department's stated mission here is, well, pretty straightforward on paper.
Just.
They're looking to revoke visas for things like indicators of overstays, criminal activity, threats to public safety, engaging in any form of terrorist activity, or providing support to a terrorist organization.
Standard security stuff, sounds like.
Mostly, but a senior State Department official was very blunt about the priority, saying, time is not my concern, the security of Americans is.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe a bit different. New rules also include reviewing social media accounts.
Social media. For visa holders.
For applicants and existing visa holders. They're looking for anti-American activity and anti-Semitism.
Wow. How do they define anti-American activity?
That's a key question. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, also updated its rules to specifically screen social media for that same phrase for people applying for visas and green cards.
So this is across the board then?
It signals an unprecedented level of scrutiny. Yeah. It shifts the focus from just screening you when you first apply to potentially ongoing monitoring. And it touches millions of lives, way beyond just the trucking sector.
That's a really strong statement from the State Department focusing on security. But you hear people like David Beer from the Cato Institute. That's a libertarian group.
Right.
He raises a point in his analysis suggesting this could kind of veer into policing free speech. Do the government reports address that, or is it just framed as security?
That tension is definitely there, and the sources show it's a very real worry for civil liberties groups. The government, well, they frame it purely as national security.
The argument being?
That online activity can be an indicator of intent or affiliations that pose a risk. But the exact criteria for anti-American activity or anti-Semitism in this context, that's still a major point of contention. Critics like Beer worry about the feasibility, the fairness, applying subjective standards across millions of social media accounts.
Yeah, the sheer scale is mind-boggling. We're talking, what, nearly 11 million temporary visas issued just in fiscal year 2024?
Exactly. And most of those, 77%, were for business or tourism. About 7% for students and academics, plus their families.
And we've seen some action already, right? Since Trump took office, over 6,000 student visas have been revoked.
Correct. Around 4,000 for legal infractions and maybe 200 to 300 for terrorism-related issues. So this continuous vetting isn't starting from zero, but it's a massive expansion.
It really could redefine who gets to come here and stay here across pretty much every visa category.
No question. It's a significant shift.
Now, as you'd probably expect, an event this impactful combined with these huge policy shifts.
It's kicked off a serious political blame game.
Oh, absolutely. And revealed really different views on who's responsible.
Yeah.
Trump administration officials, for example, have been very vocal.
Understandably, from their perspective.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy didn't mince words, called the crash a preventable tragedy directly caused by reckless decisions and compounded by despicable failures.
Strong language.
And he explicitly blamed non-enforcement and radical immigration policies for turning trucking into a lawless frontier. He pointed fingers directly at failures in state-level enforcement.
And Secretary Rubio, as we mentioned, echoed that, saying foreign drivers are endangering Americans and undercutting American truckers' jobs.
Right. Then you had the White House spokesperson, Abigail Jackson, who directly blamed, and I'm quoting here, Gavin Newsom's pro-illegal alien policies for having deadly consequences.
Targeting California specifically.
And Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin at DHS, Homeland Security, she asked how many more innocent people have to die. And she made sure to clarify that Singh's work permit was denied under Trump in 2020. But then granted, under Biden in June 2021, DHS also criticized California's Assembly Bill 60, AB 60, saying it enabled the driver.
Okay, so that's the administration's case.
Yeah.
A failure of state enforcement and previous federal policies.
But California's government, well, they pushed back hard. Governor Newsom's office pointed out that Singh entered the U.S. illegally in 2018.
During the first Trump administration.
Exactly, before Newsom was even governor. And the California DMV, they insisted they followed all federal and state laws when they granted Singh his California CDL. They explicitly stated, the federal government confirmed Mr. Singh's legal presence in the United States when they approved it.
So they're saying they got a green light from the feds.
That's their claim. And just for context on AB 60, that law passed way back in 2015. It lets undocumented immigrants get a driver's license if they can prove who they are and that they live in California. But those licenses are clearly marked not for federal identification.
Right. So California argues they followed procedures based on federal confirmation, while the feds point to state policies and the prior administration's decisions. It's complicated.
Very. And this whole back and forth isn't just between officials. Immigration advocates, critics, they've jumped in too.
Like David Cato again.
Yeah, besides the free speech concerns, he also doubted if this continuous vetting is even feasible for 55 million people. And he suspected it could lead to discriminatory targeting based on someone's background or visa type.
And other critics are hitting the political angle hard, arguing that using this tragedy to, quote, inflame hatred against people they don't like is problematic.
They point out, American citizens cause fatal accidents too, so why does this specific crash get such massive national attention, unless it's for political reasons?
That's the argument, yeah.
It's even spilling into places like Reddit. On the Rask Politics Forum, people were wrestling with the same stuff we are.
Like the English proficiency issue.
Exactly. How could Singh pass CDL tests if he reportedly couldn't speak English or read signs? People were debating fraud, clerical errors. Others pushed back, saying, well, his work authorization, approved under Biden, made him legally present, so California had to issue the license, shifting blame away from the state.
Trying to pin it on the federal work permit decision.
Right. And some even brought up that federal law says you can't hold two CDLs at once, which Singh reportedly did. Washington and California, adding another layer of how did this happen?
Yeah, another layer of confusion in the licensing process. But what's really striking, I think, is the position of the American Trucking Associations, the ATA.
The industry group, what do they say?
Okay, so they're facing this massive driver shortage, right? We're talking 60,000, maybe over 78,000 drivers needed. Huge numbers.
Yeah, you hear about that all the time, supply chain issues.
Exactly. But despite that shortage, the ATA supports the visa suspension.
They support stopping potential drivers from coming in.
They do. Their chief operating officer, Dan Horvath, called the crash a horrific tragedy that should never have happened, said Singh should never have been behind the wheel.
So safety over staffing needs for them.
That seems to be the calculation right now. The ATA is calling for tighter scrutiny, better enforcement of training standards for everyone applying. It suggests that, for the industry group at least, the immediate safety risks now outweigh the need to fix the labor shortage through these visas.
Wow. That's a strong stance from the industry itself.
It really highlights all these complex layers of responsibility, doesn't it? You've got federal government, state government, advocacy groups, the industry. Everyone pointing fingers or interpreting the breakdown differently. It's just crucial to see all those angles, not just focus on one point of blame.
Okay, let's step back from the partisan crossfire for a minute. Let's talk about the real-world effects, the tangible stuff. Not just in D.C., but how these policies might affect your daily life, the whole country.
The ripple effects.
Exactly. We're talking potentially significant economic and social impacts here for you, for the country.
Right.
Economically, well, we just mentioned the trucking shortage. It's already bad. Between 60,000 and maybe over 78,000 drivers short.
It's a big number.
Halton worker visas for commercial drivers? That's almost certainly going to make it worse. How many drivers are we talking about from visas?
Annually, it's been around 1,000 to maybe 1,490 H-2B visas issued for foreign truckers. Those are the temporary non-agricultural worker visas. So it's not a huge number compared to the total shortage, but it's a direct hit.
Every driver counts when you're that short, I guess.
And this goes way beyond just trucking, right? Economists are already putting out warnings. This broader crackdown could seriously harm the U.S. economy.
How? Like, what's the mechanism?
Think about your grocery bill. Fewer truck drivers means higher costs to transport everything. Fresh produce, electronics, building supplies, everything could get more expensive.
So inflation fuel.
Potentially, yeah. Especially hitting those supply chains that are, frankly, still kind of fragile after the pandemic. And remember, these policies, especially the vetting, affect students, other workers, business travelers, particularly people from countries not in the visa waiver program. It all trickles down eventually to the price of stuff you buy.
Okay, so economic strain. What about the social side?
Well, there are big civil liberties debates heating up, especially around free speech, potential discrimination with those social media reviews we talked about.
The anti-American activity checks.
Exactly. The definition seems so broad. The potential for subjective calls for targeting certain groups, it's vast. That's a major concern being raised.
And beyond the legal debates, what about communities?
We're hearing reports, descriptions of a fear pandemic spreading in immigrant communities because of raids and increased enforcement.
A fear pandemic.
Yeah. Imagine immigrants, even those here legally, being scared to go to the doctor or report a crime because they fear drawing attention to themselves or their families.
So they avoid interaction.
Some are apparently turning to telehealth just to avoid public interactions where their status might come up. It's not just about policy papers. It's affecting daily life, health, safety for millions.
That's heavy. And are we seeing actual demographic shifts?
There are reports indicating the immigrant population in the U.S. actually dropped recently for the first time in decades. A reduction of maybe 1.4 million people in just 6 months.
Wow. 1.4 million in 6 months.
It suggests a really palpable shift happening in the country's makeup, likely driven by these fears and these policy changes.
So it really brings up that fundamental question, doesn't it? How do you balance national security, public safety, which are obviously critical, with the economic realities, with civil liberties? The trade-offs here feel really significant.
They are significant. And the long-term consequences of these policies, they're definitely going to shape huge parts of American life. From the cost of goods at your local store to the mix of talent in our universities, even the social fabric of communities. It forces a tough conversation about what kind of society we're actually building with these intensified measures.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What we've really unpacked today is, well, it's a complex story. A tragic accident on a Florida highway acting as this powerful catalyst.
A flashpoint.
Yeah, a flashpoint for a dramatic expansion of immigration enforcement across the country. From the immediate halt on trucker visas to this huge continuous vetting plan for 55 million visa holders. These actions are fundamentally reshaping who gets to enter America, how they live here, and it's ignited these intense debates over safety, the economy, individual freedoms.
And we've seen how one single devastating event can really accelerate policies that might have already been in the works, and how different groups, feds, state governments, industry leaders, advocates, they all attribute blame differently, see vastly different outcomes coming. Understanding all those perspectives and the factual timeline we laid out, it's just essential to grasp the full scope, the real impact of this deep dive.
So here's something to think about as we finish. Considering the immediate impact of all this new scrutiny and these long-term economic and social trade-offs we've been discussing, how might these intensified immigration policies really driven by a focus on national security, how might they ultimately redefine the American workforce and maybe even the very makeup of our society as we know it?